you've got to really focus on the plan. If you focus on the what if, you've taken that emotional energy to all the other things that are going wrong, could go wrong, which for us was every day. The most important thing is, what do you do with that energy? You take that energy, you have your moment of panic, and you go, okay, got it. What do I do tomorrow? How do I take all that energy? And any energy you spend on what if is counterproductive. It's like your job evolves as a founder and a CEO to be like, that's my job, is to take where we are and put all my energy into plan. Because what ultimately works is success.
Right. Welcome to Gould with Gould, the go-to podcast for startups and entrepreneurs. I am your host, Larry J. Gould, and today I'm joined with the CEO of the Lonely Entrepreneur, Michael Dermer. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, and hopefully today you're not feeling too lonely.
I'm not.
You're with me.
I'm not. I'm with you. I'm happy to be here.
And you're coping with your loneliness, are you?
I am.
Good. Okay. So, Michael, very, very interesting story. You had a brilliant company until 2008. And can you tell us about what that company was and then what happened in the period of 2008?
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. You know, I started my career as a mergers and acquisitions lawyer. I started working for a large New York law firm, but I was really an entrepreneur at heart. And I left and started a company that got to be known as the first company in the U.S. to reward people for being healthy. It gave people financial incentives for healthy behavior. You know, there were loyalty programs.
How did that work? I mean, I watched the TV, this awful adverts, this dreadfully unhealthy food. I mean, how did you reward them? Stand outside of a supermarket and say, don't buy that, buy that.
Yeah, if you think about every other consumer industry that exists, hotels, airlines, credit cards, they reward you for everything that you do. Yeah. The only difference here was you reward for healthy behavior. So everything from eating the right foods, going to the gym, getting a mammogram, all the things that the healthcare system knew saved money, they would basically reward you to do. No different than if you went to...
It worked, though.
It works just like you would a points program on your credit card. So if you go in and you buy a pair of shoes and you earn 100 points, there's a whole system behind that, and you earn points and you get to be rewarded, and you get to pick rewards like gift cards and debit cards. The only difference was, instead of for buying shoes, we were wired up to the healthcare system. So when you went to your primary care physician, or you went to Quest Diagnostics, or you went and got a mammogram, we would get the data.
Yes.
And you would be rewarded with the algorithms and business rules based on the economics that were driven. So,
and how big was the company? Because I think it was quite big.
Yeah, I mean, but at the beginning, like a lot of startups, we were told, you know, normally with new concepts like that, people would say, "Oh, I've never heard of that before." Yeah. The healthcare industry said to us, "We will never do this. We will never pay people to do the things they should be doing for their health." And so, even though it got to the point, and I'll share with you in a minute how big it got, the couple early years were very lean, because we were basically evangelizing a concept that they hated originally. Yes. And we were very fortunate, because after, you know, kind of being 10 and 20 and 30 employees, we grew to about, at its height, about 1,000 employees. Right by the end of 2007. So over the course of about 6 and 7 years. So we had the typical, you know, hockey stick growth. Was a SaaS technology company. So, you know, we're kind of off to the races 07 going into 08 and really trying to think about, are we going to take more capital or try to go public or all kinds of fun stuff.
And then 2008. And by the way, just one thing. You're obviously a health, you know, person yourself.
Yep.
I don't think we've got much in common, but, you know, we'll continue as we are. You know, you're the sort of person that... Anyway, no, I'm sort of half kidding. Anyway, so what happened, you know, to the...
Yeah, and as many people, you know, experienced in 2008, a kind of dramatic impact on the economy of what happened with the financial crisis. You know, for us, it was particularly dramatic because the companies that were using solutions like ours were all the largest companies in America. They were all Fortune 500 companies and health plans, the ones that... And literally, you know, we would kind of half-jokingly say, you'd look at the front page of the Wall Street Journal and our clients were on it because they were going bankrupt the next day. So think about Fortune 500 companies that have all these healthcare costs spending money on this, but in the middle of a crisis, right, these things go away almost instantly. And so, we went from being on top of the world growing hockey stick to basically survival. Because when you have a service like ours, you say, well, where does your revenue come from? And the answer is Fortune 500. Well, which Fortune 500 company was going to be spending money on these things in the middle of a crisis? So I remember at a board meeting, one of my board members said, what's worst case scenario? And I said, zero. You could have zero revenue because all of our clients were, and this was a company that had 1,000 employees, right? So, Larry, we just battled and scrapped and clawed. And, I think it helped a little bit that I was a college athlete and a former M&A lawyer to have some of that experiences. But you kind of just, as I like to say, you kind of get kicked between the legs about 20 times a day. You just stop noticing and you put your head down and build a plan and try to execute on it.
And so how did it end?
Yeah. So, once 2008 happened, you kind of had to dust yourself off and say, what does the future look like? And we battled and scrapped for a couple of years. And then fortunately, on the other end of the financial crisis, everybody was interested in healthcare. It had been so ignored during the crisis.
So how did that little bit, how did you survive that bit?
A little bit was a couple of years. I mean,
I'm saying, well, from hero to zero you went, didn't you?
Yeah, literally in a week.
Yeah, and that's very hard from,
Yeah. I mean, it happened a little bit the way COVID happened, right? So for us, as we say, what it took us 10 years to build almost got destroyed in 10 days was really literally true. So, you really have to, at first, right, you have to take a look at it and say, okay, I've got to build a plan. Like I've got to build some kind of plan that can help you.
That was your reaction.
Well, you as we like to say to people that have tough times in startups, you get one day to drink, eat Haagen-Dazs, drink bourbon, cry, and then you turn pen to paper. I felt such a responsibility, not only to the vision of it, but to all the people involved, my investors, my employees. And so that's your job, right? You try to build a plan and you just learn some real lessons along the way. I mean, first of all, it was forget about the rules, right? Don't break any laws, don't kill anybody. But other than that, you're a 1,000-person company in a world where Bear Stearns is going under. Nobody is paying attention. We like to say, you're sitting on the beach reading the Wall Street Journal and a tsunami's coming. Yeah. Nobody's paying attention. Nobody cares. You're not going to be able to get financing. So don't break any laws and don't hurt anybody, but we're going to have to make it up. We're going to have to come up with really creative solutions and rethink how we do everything because the math just doesn't work.
So take us through that. The reason why I'm actually, it sounds like I'm focusing on bad situations, but really what we want to do is learn from you because the success rates for startups and startups have done great things for this world.
Yeah.
And we're very pro startup.
Yeah.
But only, 1 out of 10 really make a success on that side. And also another thing that motivates us to have this program and talk about these things, that people who go through you sound to be a very strong guy, but the mental health issues for people in startups and their families who are often helping them, the startups is very strong. So, it's very, very interesting to hear from you, somebody how they can, it's not a survivor and a winner.
Yeah.
But it's like hints that we want from you.
Yeah. Well, first of all, it is
drugs or
it is for big boys and girls. So two things. One, you had to be unbelievably creative.
Yeah.
Right. And I'll give you a quick story, really amazing. So we're sending out $15-20 million of incentives every month, gift cards, debit cards, like real things.
Wow.
And then all of a sudden we don't have any revenue. Wow. Right? Literally almost overnight. So you're like, that math doesn't work. We essentially calculated that for every dollar we had, we needed 15. Where before that, we had 30, we got, do the math. And so a lot of our rewards were gift cards. Right. So we went to national retailers, the Walmarts, the Applebee's, and said, listen, nobody's going into your store right now. Instead of us paying 90 cents on the dollar for a gift card, which is what we know, we want to pay 20 cents on the dollar.
Right.
And they said no.
Yes.
So I literally went down the street in northern New Jersey where our office was and walked into an Applebee's and said, I need to buy $25,000 in gift cards I really needed to buy $500,000 in gift cards. And they said, oh my God, an 18-year-old kid with like a clip-on tie said, oh my God, that's amazing. I'm like, why? He's like, because the restaurant that sells the most gift cards, the whole staff goes to Hawaii. I'm like, great. How much do you have to do it? And she's like, well, last year the winner had $26,000 in sales. We needed to buy $500,000. So I negotiate with this local Applebee's that for this $500,000, we would pay 5 cents on the dollar.
Wow.
So what used to cost us 90 cents now costs us 5 cents. So you do the 15-to-1 math. And it was those types of things that you're literally just making up right as you go. Takes an unbelievable amount of creativity. The other thing I would say is you've got to really focus on the plan. If you focus on the what if, you've taken that emotional energy to all the other things that are going wrong, could go wrong, which for us was every day, right? You're like, what's my plan? I'm going to put all my energy into that because nothing.
So this is, sorry to interject, but this is the panic that happens because there's a period of panic. And for the people, what advice have you got for the people who are shocked and in panic?
Yeah.
Which is how do you actually mentally deal with that panic? I mean, you seem to be very, 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 very strong. So where do you get that strength from? And should you give up sometimes, do you think?
It's very natural to panic because also it's your baby.
Yeah.
It's not just panic over something that's kind of antiseptic to you. It's your baby. So I think the most important thing is what do you do with that energy, right? And that's why I keep going, build a plan, right? Like you take that energy, you have your moment of panic and you go, okay, got it. What do I do? What do I do tomorrow? How do I take all that energy? And any energy you spend on what if is counterproductive. It's like your job evolves, right? As a founder and a CEO to be like, that's my job is to take where we are, right? Build a plan and put all my energy into plan. Because what ultimately works is success.
Right. So really what we're saying is stop moaning and being, miserable. Make a plan. Tell me about approaching making a plan, because the people out there are listening or you're seeing and listening to you. And I can hear them saying, look, I've just lost my business.
Yep.
I've got no money. And this like fit looking guy, who likes going to gym, so which I naturally don't like you for that. This fit looking guy wants me to make a bloody plan.
Yep.
What can we say to them?
Well, and it sounds cliche, build a plan, right?
Yes.
Just think of it as there's a revenue part of your plan. Where are you going to get sales, right? There's an expense part of your plan. How do I cut expenses and get leaner? There's a cash part of your plan, right? How do I make sure I optimize cash? So when you break it down to its pieces, think of it this way. Imagine if you were running a charity event that was really important to you. And the charity event requires a venue, and it requires ticket sales, and it requires entertainment, right? And things went wrong, you would execute on all those pieces to try to get it right. And so what I mean by building a plan is you break it down into these pieces you have to optimize: revenue, expense, cash, people. And you say, what am I going to do in each of those areas? And how do I spend all my time trying to align to that?
And could we add to that plan, don't be frightened to pivot?
I mean,
because sometimes they say, look, you might have had that 5 cents and what all those other things, but I haven't got those. It's collapse.
Yep.
And financially very difficult. So what can you do if you haven't got something? You've lost everything there. You've actually, hopefully you're not losing your home, but many people can do that.
Yeah.
What advice for that plan? How do you approach that?
Yeah. So even, Larry, when you're not in a collapse situation, even when you're starting, right, I think pivots are overrated. I think a lot of times, I really do, because I think anytime you do something different, right, you're going to face resistance, right? It's going to be too big, too small, too pink, too red, too expensive, right? And so if you haven't really thought about, why am I going to win? Right. At Lonely Entrepreneur, we call it finding a playground where nobody else is playing.
Yeah.
Right. How do you define it? If you haven't done that, you end up pivoting a lot because you go here and it's hard. you'll hear, and it's hard, it's always going to be hard. If you're just selling another toothbrush, everybody knows what a toothbrush is, right? But if you said to somebody, you're going to get into a stranger's car and they're going to take you somewhere and you're going to pay them.
Yes.
You'd be like, that's a crime spree. That's not a business, right?
Yeah.
So the day before Uber, right?
Yes.
There's no market for Uber. So I think a lot of times people end up pivoting because they haven't really said, what is my playground where I really win? And so they kind of go after it, and then they face resistance and go, okay, I'm going to sell to customers whose names start with the letter A. Great. I go over there. They say it's too big. Great. I'm going to now go to customers with the letter B. And so I think a lot of times the fundamental work of finding your playground and where you really win hasn't happened, right? They say, I have great cookies. Yeah. And everybody thinks my cookies will be great. But you really haven't thought why. Then what happens is, I went to sell these cookies to Godiva, and they said no. So I think pivoting happens way, way too often, as opposed to the fundamental work to try to figure out.
That's quite a unique response, I have to say.
Yeah.
Because people, I think never mind just pivoting business, you have an unhappy relationship.
Yeah.
So don't have another relationship.
Yeah.
Or, whatever.
Well, it's not to say that you don't do it. It's just that a lot of times.
No, but I'm saying that you should question the fact that because the business, almost as you've got, hasn't worked, you can still try to do something with it. Is that right?
Yeah, but it's the fundamental principle why you win. Like, why is it? So, for example, take rewarding people for being healthy.
Right.
There are plenty of people that were running reward programs. In fact, they were the biggest companies in the world, Amex, Visa, MasterCard. Yeah. All we did was apply it to healthcare. And so that became our playground. Right. And so we're defining it. Like, we're defining the rules. I would lie to you if I told you along the way, health plans and our potential people who ended up being our customers said, we're never going to do this. So the question is, would you pivot at that point?
Yeah.
Right? You have to have really thought through, is there true value in what I'm doing? Is it really uniquely differently, especially in the year 2024, 2025? It's so cluttered. If you don't define yourself differently, completely differently, you get lost in the shuffle. So I don't think that, like many things, a lot of times, and I'm sure you experience this in the startup world, people try to come up with these hard and fast rules. Well, if I could just blank, if I just had the right team, if I just had capital, and that blank a lot of times is different for everybody. So it's not like one hard and fast rule. There's judgment to, have I done the work to find my playground and should I stick to it, versus, okay, I need to pivot because I've learned some things along the way that said, instead of making it blue, make it green. Yeah. And that's where judgment comes in.
Okay, right. So during that period of pressure, though, how did you emotionally deal with all that?
For me, I was very much committed to the people that served the mission. All the people I mentioned, investors, family had put money in, my employees. You have a $30,000, customer service employee, right? You have to think about them. That was number one. Number two was, like I said, energy to the plan. Like you put your time, your effort, and focus on what is getting you closer to, right? Increasing revenue, reducing expenses, optimizing your cash. But there's some other things that go with that. And one was, you have to have a release every single day. The intensity that came with 28-hour days for a couple of years. Yes. And everybody's release is different. Mine was working out at the gym. Other people, it's listening to music. One thing that happened to me that was amazing was my brother asked me to watch my niece and nephew, who were 5 and 3 at the time. And I said, my brother's name is Dan. I said, Dan, come on. Company's collapsing. I don't have time to watch the kids.
So you're nanny as well.
Yeah. And he's like, I really need you to do it. And I went over there at 3 o'clock on a Saturday where I'd be, my head's down working. And I watched these 2 kids that couldn't care less about my balance sheet. And it was magical.
Yeah, that is brilliant.
But that was the release, right? The release of being.
I think that's a very big point.
Yeah.
A big point here.
Yeah.
The release. It means you have to park and lock the door of the car and stop going around in circles and doing something different.
Every single day you have to have something that
so I hope
you
you're all thinking about what ideas you've got for release. I'm not sure I can think of that, but I'll think about it.
Well, it could be yoga, it could be time with your kids, it could be music, it could be whatever it is for you. Yeah. The other thing
is... it could be doing a podcast like this.
That's right.
Yeah, I think that is my release as it happens.
And the only other thing I'd say about that time is sleep. When I when I was working so much, if somebody said to me, you have to sleep, I'd tell them they were crazy. And then one day I fell asleep on the couch in my office for a half hour at like 4 p.m. And I felt so much better. And what you realize is you have to be, especially in those times, you have to be at your best. So if you're going to be at your best for 20 hours a day, right? So every day would crash for a half hour, 45 minutes in the afternoon. And one day a week, I'd get 8 hours.
Right.
And these are the things you teach yourself in these dramatic times. You stick to the plan, you put your energy there, you have your releases every day, you sleep, and you have at it.
But I love that expression, release.
Yep.
It's kind of, I suppose it's like permission to do something that takes you away from the grind that you're on.
Yeah. Well, what the way I would say it is, it's not even take you away. It's that if you're good at doing it, you have to have releases because it makes you better. It's not, I'm going to go sideways.
That's much more positive.
It's actually a skill as a founder.
How did that 2008, very difficult time shape you for the future? Are you very risk averse? What did it do? How are you different now?
First of all, it was an incredibly humbling experience. And just so incredibly proud of the people that were involved in making that happen. Because, Larry, we're staring at going from being on top of the world to bankrupt in a week.
Wow.
And there was no guarantee we would make it. And so to come out the other end of that was an incredibly rewarding experience to watch people sacrifice and come together. But for me, you just realize, and I realized that people put their heart and their soul. For me, I was a corporate lawyer and I was trying to do bigger
nobody
things.
Likes corporate lawyers. Nobody out there will give any.
Of course,
corporate lawyers.
But what you realize is that everybody across the world is putting their heart and soul into their cookies.
Yeah.
Right. And so I just got such a deep appreciation. I know I had it for myself and for the people on our team, but to go through that and see how personal of an experience it was for everybody involved, I could call people up from that company today and they would run through a wall.
Well, that says a lot about you. So give us a secret. I mean, it does say a lot about you because it doesn't happen very often that I'm hearing this. Well, what do you do? What are you saying to these people? What is it? What's your magic? Because it is magic. Because motivation and people, don't have to be loyal if you don't deserve the loyalty.
Yeah.
What ways did you make them feel that you deserve the loyalty? Whatever do you do to deserve it?
I think if you ask most people about myself and my companies, they'd say he's really hard to work for. Like, I don't think people would be jumping up in the streets and say, Michael's the greatest guy in the world. I think what they would say is two things. Number one, you will be part of something important. Something, in that case, rewarding people for being healthy. And number two is you yourself became more than who you were. Before you knew what potential or capability that you had, they're another level beyond it because of the experience. And that's not always easy. So for me, what I hope is that what they felt about it was their own level, right? What they woke up one day and say, my level is this, was stretched beyond that so that their personal self-esteem and who they became was so far beyond that because they challenged themselves and did things and accomplished things they never thought that they could accomplish. After we kind of came back, we wanted to try to...
Where did you come back to?
Well, we ended up selling the company. I'll tell you. So on the other end of the financial crisis, when things calmed down, everybody was interested in healthcare, right? Because the healthcare costs had been completely ignored.
Yeah.
And so when companies were looking at how do I manage my healthcare costs, when you've treated your employees so poorly, to go back to them and say, please be healthy was just not going to work. So a bunch of investment bankers approached me and said, the only way we're going to get America to be healthy is to bribe them.
Right.
And you guys have been doing it. And so we ran a little bit of process and ended up selling the company. So it worked out great. And it was a great culmination of the whole experience. So we were very fortunate to get that over the finish line.
No, congratulations. That's brilliant. And then a new world, a new life for you.
Yeah.
Help us talk about that.
Really another magical...
And it wasn't doing what you were doing. Nothing to do with health. It may be to do with health, business health.
Yeah.
But it wasn't the same health. Tell us what you did.
No, just a magical organic experience. I was not thinking about anything next, Larry. I was just taking a deep breath.
So what did you do? You got this check, a check?
Got a digital check.
Yeah,
and,
you got a digital check.
Walked outside my apartment on
Yeah.
39th and Lexington and went to the New York Public Library for a day and just read. I had never been there, believe it or not. I live a block from it and had never.
That sounds a bit sad, actually.
No, it was beautiful.
You didn't have any friends.
It was beautiful. It was beautiful.
So you go to the gym and you go read in the library. Okay, that's an interesting.
So I was.
No, sorry, I'm kidding.
No. I was just digesting and just felt a great deal of pride. But I wasn't really yet looking for my next thing. Larry, you know me a little bit. I'm only interested in bigger things, like rewarding people for being healthy, could change society. And so I wasn't really thinking about anything. The only thing I was doing was talking to people that were starting their businesses for fun. A friend would call up and say, hey, so-and-so's starting a fashion business. You should talk to them. So I'd have a cup of coffee and chat. And one of them said to me, being an entrepreneur is really lonely.
Yeah.
And I was like, But I really forgot about it. And then a couple weeks later, I was walking down the street in Union Square here in the city. And I said I was walking down the street with a friend of mine. I said, lonely entrepreneur. And he's like, what did you say? And I said, lonely entrepreneur. He's like, oh my God, what is that? That says it all. That's brilliant. Yes. I was like, what are you talking about? He goes, come here. He goes into a packed Starbucks and goes, watch this. I'm like, what is he doing?
I know what you're going to say.
And he screams, who here is a lonely entrepreneur? And it seemed like everybody put their hand up. And what really struck me at that moment, and again, with this backdrop of this whole experience I just went through, what really struck me is that in a talented city like New York, you have people with passion and energy and great ideas. And for most of them, it's not turning into success. Yeah. And I was like, well, if you could fix that, that would really be worth fixing. So that became the birth of the Lonely Entrepreneur. And then we said to ourselves, okay, that sounds good. How do you do that? Right. And we just noticed pretty quickly, we asked ourselves, how do you become an entrepreneur in the U.S.? If you
say we asked our, who's
myself and some of the people that have been around me from my past company and some new people that I had met.
And did you register it? Did you start a business?
Yeah, I mean, the next minute, like all of us, when we get a name, we got registered trademark, and literally forget about the next day, that night, like us crazy entrepreneurs. Yeah. I met my partner in crime, Victoria Sherman, who's my right hand and all this, but really, we're like, okay, how do you do that? And what we noticed pretty quickly was to become an entrepreneur here in the U.S. and in the world, if you got dropped in New York or Topeka, Kansas or Seattle, there was this very well-intentioned but kind of disorganized hodgepodge of resources that you had to go figure out. And remember, I'm a SaaS technology guy at this point. I'm like, why isn't there a platform? Right. Like, wasn't there a platform you could give to everybody that has everything they need? And so that was it. We just said, we're going to build a platform that would take somebody who's a 15-year-old kid with an idea all the way up to somebody looking for Series A and put everything in there so we could help kiddingly, but not really, everybody.
Right, so kiddingly, but not really. I'm not with the kiddingly, but not really.
People are at every different shape, stage. You know this. You're on it. Young people, old people, people that know finance and marketing, people who are stage one, have 100 employees, everything in the middle, just all this stuff that you need to know. And so we're like, we have to put everything in a platform that they need. And so now that has become what we call the learning community, which was designed to answer the question, why isn't there a one-stop shop for entrepreneurs?
So it's interesting because I was in Starbucks and I was thinking, I wonder if they have to buy so much coffee or anything, because it was half full of startups. Yep. And just as a bit of a shout out for Cornell and the program they do, this and a number of other universities are beginning to do that now. And this is what I'm involved in, is that they have what you have, but entry is different. Yeah. And what you have is that you don't have to show any educational qualification or thing. That, I think, is what's really great as well.
Yeah, I think it's so the programs that I'm familiar with, Cornell and others, that providing a very, very high level
they're brilliant
expertise to people that are further along or have the capability to further along. Yeah. But over 90% of the businesses in the United States have less than 5 employees, right? And so you say to yourself, okay, while places like Cornell do their thing, what about, like I said, the woman in Iowa that starts a business and all those people? So how did they get helped? And really, we did a real disservice to entrepreneurs, in my opinion, in the U.S. We said, if you have passion and grit and a good idea, you're good. Just let her rip. Yeah. So if you said to me, I'm going to perform heart surgery tomorrow, I would say, Larry, did you go to medical school? And I would say things like, just fail fast, right? Or what doesn't kill us makes us stronger, right? And that's what we said to startups. So, the mom that works in corporate America who makes amazing cookies is going to be like, I'm going to quit my job and make cookies because my neighbors told me that I have the greatest cookies in the world.
So now I really would like you to tell us about where you are and again, where our community can contact you.
Of course.
And take advantage of what you're offering. Could you sort of explain that? And maybe if you could look at them.
That'd be my pleasure.
Yeah.
First of all, thank you again for having me. Yeah. So we built this platform called the Learning Community, which is really designed to be a one-stop shop for entrepreneurs. That all can be found at lonelyentrepreneur.com and the Lonely Entrepreneur across social channels. And the platform, which is called the Learning Community, is $1,000 a year. And the whole idea is you get everything you need in one place. And that is 2,000 learning modules. So basically on-demand knowledge and on-demand help. So unlimited group coaching online and a place to get your questions answered real time in the platform. So the whole idea is that you go to lonelyentrepreneur.com, you get a subscription to this platform, and you hopefully have everything you need to move you down the path of every chance of success. And the one thing I shared with you before, we also have a foundation where we go to corporations and philanthropies and governments and say to them, if you're trying to empower a certain group of people, let's say it's Black entrepreneurs or the military or people just been released from prison, they will give money to our nonprofit so we can give the platform away for free to entrepreneurs that they care about.
No, that is absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
So tell them what they have to look online for.
Just lonelyentrepreneur.com. And of course, the Lonely Entrepreneur on all your different social media channels.
Okay, so I wish you all luck and great having you here. And I think it's been phenomenally useful. So looking forward to having you back to tell you what all these people have done.
Well,
be in contact with us. Tell us what you think of the platform. And wish you success and a good time. Bye for now.